But when you see Jerusalem surrounded by armies, then know that its desolation is near. Then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains, let those who are in the midst of her depart, and let not those who are in the country enter her. For these are the days of vengeance, that all things which are written may be fulfilled. But woe to those who are pregnant and to those who are nursing babies in those days. For there will be great distress in the land and wrath upon this people. And they will fall by the edge of the sword, and be led away captive into all nations. And Jerusalem will be trampled by Gentiles until the times of the Gentiles are fulfilled. Luke 21 verses 25 to 28, the coming of the Son of Man. And there will be signs in the sun, in the moon, and in the stars, and on the earth distress of nations, with perplexity, the sea and the waves roaring, men's hearts failing them from fear and the expectation of those things which are coming on the earth, for the powers of the heavens will be shaken. Then they will see the Son of Man coming in a cloud with power and great glory. Now when these things begin to happen, look up and lift up your heads, because your redemption draws near. Fulfillment of the times of the Gentiles. The siege of Jerusalem to which the Lord refers cannot be the siege that has taken place in recent days by the armies of the Assyrians led by the king of the north. The Lord speaks here of the siege with the subsequent destruction that will happen by the hand of the Romans in the year 70. It proves that it are the times of the Gentiles, Luke 21 verse 24, that started with Nebuchadnezzar, but that will also one day be fulfilled. During the times of the Gentiles, Jerusalem is trampled underfoot by the nations. This shows that the Lord Jesus speaks of the present time. The times of the Gentiles will come to an end when he returns to earth. What the Lord describes with respect to the situation that arises when the Romans rise up against Jerusalem does have the same character as the siege of Jerusalem in the last days. In the last days, Jerusalem will also be trampled underfoot and destroyed, but shortly thereafter saved from distress by the coming of Christ from heaven on earth. Then he will destroy his enemies with the sword coming out of his mouth, Revelation 19 verse 15. The destruction that Luke writes down from the Lord's mouth cannot be an end-time event. The destruction was followed by the humiliation of the Jewish capital, which was then occupied by one nation after another. This continues until the term God has set for the domination of the Gentiles has come to an end. This is typically something for our evangelist. Matthew and Mark speak of the abomination of desolation, Matthew 24 verse 15, Mark 13 verse 14, which can only be about the last crisis. Although the circumstances are like those on the day the Son of Man is revealed, Luke 17 verse 30, here it is about an imminent event. That there are certainly similarities is shown by the Lord's warnings. As in view of the last days, the Lord warns here not to lose any time and to flee from the advancing enemy, Luke 17 verse 31. Wherever they are, they have to make sure they are away from Jerusalem. It is folly to believe out of an unhealthy love for the city that something valuable can be taken away from it, or even to think that it would make sense to defend the city. God's judgment comes over the city. Therefore it is not only unwise, but also disobedient to be guided by any connection with the city. God fulfills the word he has spoken. He has said that if the city continues to resist him, he will destroy it. The Lord Jesus foretold it, Luke 20 verse 16. Revenge will hit all life, even in its earliest stages. The need will be great in the land because of the wrath that God must bring upon this people, that is the people of Israel that killed Christ. Any resistance is meaningless. The enemy is supreme. Many inhabitants will be killed by the sword. Others will be captured and taken to all nations. That doesn't happen in the end time, but in the year 70. Then Jerusalem will lose its glory and independence. It will not so much be a subdued city, but a despised city on that the nations will trample on. This is how it was until 1948, when Israel became an independent state again. Yet even today it is still a land that exists both by the grace of certain powerful nations and by the surrounding nations, is despised and seen with the greatest enmity. The times of the Gentiles is the period when world domination is given to the Gentiles. We see that this is expressed in the rule by the four world empires about which we read in the book of Daniel. When Nebuchadnezzar received from God world domination including authority over Israel, the times of the Gentiles began. Daniel 2 verses 37 to 40, Daniel 7 verses 2 to 17. But there is an until. This word indicates that this situation is coming to an end. The end of the domination and trampling underfoot of Jerusalem by the nations is heralded by signs that will appear in sun and moon and stars. These signs in heaven are accompanied by dismay among the nations and not only in Israel. There will be an increasing fear among the nations of terrible things, of threats of disasters of all kinds. The nations are in perplexity. At the moment I write this, March 2008, in the Netherlands the movie Fitna, by the politician Geert Wilders about Islam is one of the boosters of this general feeling of fear. Climate change, for example, also causes panic. The fact that people's leaders speak soothingly about such signals or claim to have things under control with grandiloquent speech does not take anything away from the fear that people feel internally. The fear will be so great that people will faint. They see the threat of doom greater and greater. They will try to do everything to turn the tide, but it will turn out to be useless. They have to do with forces in the heavens, spiritual forces. People have surrendered themselves to them because they have excluded God. The greatest disaster that will hit them is the coming of the Son of Man. They will see him come in a cloud, Daniel 7 verse 13, the sign of his glory. He will then reveal power and great glory. They despised the baby in the manger, wrapped in cloths. They did not want him, and rejected him, and killed him. Then they will stand face to face with him, Revelation 1 verse 7, and will not escape.